Welcome to another session on Fine-Tune Your English. In today's class, we are going to look at tenses, which is one of the scary yet important part of English grammar. Can you tell me what makes your conversations meaningful? When you communicate with another person, if the person is not able to locate when the action happened, the conversation would be meaningless. So, it is important to communicate the time of the action. And tenses, in fact, help us with this aspect. So, as we said, tenses give the time reference of an action. And in English, it is usually the verbs that help us to communicate this time reference. So, in a conversation in English or in a sentence in English, it is usually the verb which changes its form in order to communicate the time reference of the action. I'm sure all of you know the three types of tenses. The first one is what we call the present tense. Second one is the past tense. And the third one is the future tense. Now, there are grammarians who say that only two tenses exist in English because future tense is almost like a change in form of the present or the past tense. So, basically, in English language, we have three tenses: the present tense, past tense, and the future tense. Now, to make this idea a little more clear, we will look at a timeline. Let's take this timeline as a reference point when we learn these tenses. Now, this is a timeline, and imagine that this point is the moment you were born. Let's take this as your birth date. And this is some time in the future, which would be your death date. So, this timeline is what helps you communicate these different tenses, which helps you to understand the three different tenses. Now, from this moment when I'm born, whatever happens to me, and say I'm 30 years of age now, so I'm somewhere here, and this is the present moment. Okay, this is the now moment that I'm talking about. This is the future. The part which moves to this part is what you call the future, and the part which moves to this part could be the present or the past. Okay, it can go back in time also. So, the present and the past exist before this point. It can also make references to the future incidents also. We'll come to that when we look at it in detail. And from the next moment from now refers to the future. Okay, now coming back, let's look at the present tense. Now, when we take any of these tenses, we need to remember that there are four different forms of each of these tenses. The first is what you call the simple form. The second is what you call the continuous form. The third is the perfect form. And the fourth is the perfect continuous form. Now, it's easy to understand this because a simple form of any of these tenses, okay, at least the present and the past tense, simple form of the present of the past tense would take a form of do along with the verb. Continuous form would take any form of be along with verb plus ing. The third form, perfect form, would take a form of have or has, okay, a form of have or has or had plus the past participle form of the verb. And the perfect continuous tense usually takes any form of have or has or had plus been plus the verb plus ing. So if you remember this equation, tenses are going to be easy. So simple form would be a form of do plus the verb. So it can be do plus verb or does plus verb or did plus verb when it comes to past tense. The continuous form is any form of be plus verb plus ing. So it can be is, am or are in the present tense, or was or were in the past tense plus the verb plus ing. Perfect tense would be has or have or had plus the past participle form of the verb. And perfect continuous tense would be a form of have, that is has or have or had been plus verb plus ing. Let's look at the present tense first and study how and when they are used in sentences. Now, let us look at the different forms of the present tense. So as we said before, the first form is the simple present tense. And ironically, this has much less presentness in it. What do you mean by that? Now, if coming back to this timeline, if this is the present moment, simple present tense is not a sentence or is not an action which is limited to this present moment alone. Okay, so simple present tense would be an action which can extend from any point of time from your birth, okay, any point of time from your birth to your death, which means it can be, you use simple present tense when you want to refer to a habit, or you use simple present tense when you want to refer to a general truth. For example, the sun rises in the east. Now this is a general truth. Oil floats on water. This is also a general truth. I wake up at 6 o'clock. Now this is a habit. Okay, this talks about a habit. I wake up at 6 o'clock. Or I have breakfast at 8 o'clock. So these are all habits and they're used in the simple present form. Now what is the form of simple present tense? As we said before, it can be do or does plus the verb. That is, when I say oil floats on water, floats is the verb, and when you split it, it is a combination of does plus float. Or in other words, you use do plus verb when there is a plural noun, and you use does plus verb when there is a singular noun. Let's take another example for a habit. They go to church every day. Now this is a habit. They go to church every day. Now the verb here is go, and when you split it, it's a combination of do plus basic form of the verb go. And why did we use do here? Because they is a plural pronoun. I hope that is clear. So you use simple present tense when you're referring to a habit or when you're referring to a general truth. And in this timeline, it extends over a long span of time. It is not limited to the present moment alone, but it extends to a longer span of time. We also use simple present when we want to talk about our life. That is when you want to say where you come from, or when you want to say where you study, okay, or when you want to say where you work, you can use simple present tense. So you can say, I live in Kottayam. I live in Kottayam. Now live is a verb in simple present tense because it's a combination of do plus live. I hope that is clear. Another instance when we use simple present tense is when we want to show our ability. For example, when you say, he speaks 4 languages. Now here, speaking 4 languages shows an ability of this person. So, speaks is used in simple present tense. It's a combination of does plus speak. Similarly, when you listen to sports commentary, those are actions which take place at that moment, and that is said in simple present tense. Or when you listen to a newspaper headline, usually these are events of the past, but when it comes to the headline, it is usually given in simple present tense. Or another instance is when you want to use a quotation. For example, the Bible says, okay, that's a quotation, that's how you start a quotation. So and so says. Okay, so when you use a quotation, you use simple present. So basically, simple present is the tense you use when you want to refer to a habit, or you want to speak about a general truth, or you want to talk about your life, okay, about the presentness of your life, or you want to talk about your ability, or when you listen to a sports commentary or newspaper headlines, or when you want to use a quotation. We use simple present tense. And remember, the form for simple present tense is do or does plus the basic form of the verb. Next, we will move on to the second type of present tense, the present continuous tense. So remember, when you use a continuous tense, there is an ing form of the verb coming. Now, when do we use this present continuous tense? Let's come back to the timeline. We said present tense, simple present tense happens over a span of time. But present continuous tense is exactly what happens at the present moment. That is, present continuous tense is an action which started some time back and is continuing now. It is happening at the moment, and it might continue for some more time and then come to an end. I'll repeat. Present continuous tense refers to an action which started some time back and is continuing and is happening at the moment, right now. It's happening right now. It might continue for some more time and then come to an end. So it refers to an action of a shorter span of time. Shorter span. And it is the action happening now. Now, when I want to use a sentence right now in present continuous tense, I would be saying, I am teaching tenses. Okay, I'm teaching tenses right now. It started some time back. It is happening now. It might continue for some more time. So, the form for present continuous tense is, as we said before, the form of be. We use the form of be for present continuous tense. That is, it will be is or am or are plus the verb plus ing. So the example that I gave before, I am teaching tenses. So am teaching is the form that we used here. We used am because the subject is I. We will use is if the subject is singular. We will use are if the subject is plural. And the verb plus ing. The verb is teach plus the ing form. So that is one instance when we use the present continuous tense. When the action is happening now, it's a shorter spanned action. Second one, we can use present continuous tense if we want to refer to a future action. Now what is that? Suppose my friend is going to Mumbai. And I would say, if I'm talking to someone about my friend, I'll say, my friend is leaving for Mumbai today evening. Now, this is a future action, which will happen in the recent time. Okay, it'll happen soon. Okay, now it refers, this present, I used present continuous here to refer to a future action. The boy is leaving for Mumbai this evening. So the form here is leaving. We used is because the subject is the boy and leave plus ing. So this is present continuous tense. We can also use present continuous tense if you want to show an action which is gradually developing, okay, which is gradually developing. Now what is that? You can say it is getting darker and darker, okay. When it is becoming night, you might say it is getting darker and darker. So it shows a gradual development of the state of being. So present continuous can be used in such instances also. So remember, present continuous action is a shorter action which started some time back, is continuing now. It will continue for some more time. That is the present continuous one, and we use the form of be to refer to the present continuous action. The third form of the present tense is the present perfect tense. Now remember, the perfect form of the verb always has the forms of have with it. When do we use the present perfect tense? Simple present tense was something which extended over a span of time. It could be over the lifetime also. Present continuous tense was an action which referred to a shorter span of time. Now present perfect tense is an action which happened in the past. Okay? So it has no direct connection with the present moment. It is an action which happened sometime in the past. It could be anywhere here. It happened sometime in the past. So present perfect tense is an action which shows a past action, and what differentiates it from the simple past tense? This is a past action which is complete, okay, which is completed. Now, there is no more of the past action remaining now. The action is complete, and it gives an emphasis on the present effect of the action. The effect of the action in the present times. Let's look at the form and look at a few examples. Now this will be clear. Present perfect tense has the form has or have plus the past participle form of the verb, which is the V3 form of the verb. Now, as I said before, present perfect tense shows an action which is completed and it has its impact in the present times also. Let's look at this example. I have had my breakfast. Now in this sentence, I'm saying that I had my breakfast, okay, I completed having my breakfast, and the present implication, the implication it has in the present time is that I'm not hungry now, okay. Let's take another example. I have learned French. In this sentence, we have the present perfect form. Even in the previous sentence, we had the present perfect form. Here we have plus the past participle form of the verb. Now this is a completed action. Okay, I have learned French. Okay, I did my French learning sometime in the past. But what is the present implication? The present implication is that I know French now. Okay, let's take another example. I have read Shakespeare. When I say I have read Shakespeare, it means that I know the works of Shakespeare and I have an idea of what the story is all about. So have read is yet another example for the present perfect tense. So the first instance when you use the present perfect tense is when you want to show an action which is complete and to show its impact on the present times. The second instance is when you want to convey a news. Okay. Now when you want to convey a news, the example would be, the depression has weakened and moved in a northeasterly direction. The depression has weakened, okay? The news which shows a past action and which is being communicated to another person. Similarly, when you want to show an action in the past, okay, action, and you want to stress on the fact that the experience and knowledge of that action remains with us even now. It is quite similar to what we said before. Okay? An action which is complete, and you want to convey that even though it is a completed action, I have the experience and knowledge of that action even now. For example, when I say, I have lived among the Eskimos. I have lived among the Eskimos. Now here, it is an action which happened in the past, but the experience of living with the Eskimos and the knowledge of them remains with me even now. So that is another instance when you use the present perfect tense. There's a hint to remember when to use the present perfect tense, especially when you have words like just in the sentence. Remember to use the present perfect tense. The train has just left the station. Okay, the train has just left the station. It is not the action in the present moment, it's an action which happened in the recent past, right? It's an action which happened in the recent past and the action is complete. The train has left, meaning that the train is no more in the station and it just happened in the recent past. So these are the instances when we use the present perfect tense to show an action which is completed, an action in the past which is completed, or to show an emphasis the past action has on the present times. Or when you want to convey a news, or when you want to stress on an action and you want to say that the experience of that action still remains with me now, you can use the present perfect tense. And remember, whenever there is the word just, most often we use the present perfect tense there. The fourth and the last type of tense is the present perfect continuous tense. Here we have a perfect and a continuous form coming together. So it is a form of has or have plus been plus the verb plus ing. So this is the form that we use for present perfect continuous tense. Remember, we said present perfect tense is an action that shows a completed action, especially in the recent past. And remember, we said present continuous is an action which is continuing, which is happening now at the moment. Now, what is present perfect continuous action? Looking at the timeline, we understand that present perfect continuous action started sometime in the past. It is continuing. Okay, it has been happening for a longer time period and is continuing even now, and it might continue for some more time. So such actions, to indicate such actions, we use the present perfect continuous tense. So it's an action which started quite some time in the past. It is continuing now, it will continue for some more time in the future, and it might come to an end at any point of time. So present perfect continuous is such an action. Okay, let me just state it. Action that has a longer time span than the present continuous tense. Okay, it has a longer time span than the present continuous tense, but has a shorter time span than the present perfect tense. We'll come to that. Now, action that has a longer time span than the present continuous tense, it is continuing even now. It is happening even now. Let's take an example. As we said, when you have a singular noun, you'll use has. When you have a plural noun, you use have plus been plus the verb plus ing. So been is the word here which indicates the perfect tense, and ing is the word which indicates the continuous tense. So this is the form for present perfect continuous. Let's look at an example. I have been living in Kottayam since 1990. Now remember, from my birth period, okay, sometime in 1990, I started this action of living in Kottayam. It is continuing even now. It might continue for some more time. So it's a longer time span when compared to the present continuous tense. But when you compare it with the present perfect tense, let's look at another example. I have been waiting for 2 hours. I have been waiting for 2 hours. Let's look at another one. He has waited for 20 years for this child. Now would you try to compare these two sentences? I have been waiting for 2 hours. He has waited for 20 years for this child. The first sentence is in present perfect continuous tense, and the second one is a present perfect tense. Now, what does it indicate? Here, when you compare these two sentences, the present perfect continuous tense refers to more temporary actions, okay, or situations, and the present perfect tense refers to more permanent situations. Okay, so the thing you need to remember when we look at present perfect continuous tense is that it has a longer time span than the present continuous tense, and it is less permanent than a present perfect tense. So that is the basic function of present perfect continuous tense. Now remember never to use the time expressions which show a completeness. Like we never use today or yesterday or in 2000, okay, specific time period like this. We never use such time expressions when we use present perfect continuous tense. Instead, we use time expressions that refer to the time up till now, okay, the time up to now. For example, the words like since or for, we use these words in order to refer to the present perfect continuous tense. So with this, we come to an end of the present tenses. We talked about the 4 different types of present tenses. We looked at when to use them and the form and examples. We will continue the past tense, the forms of past tense in the next class. Thank you.